Welcome, everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This is another exciting episode of the Raging Verbalist. You are at the right spot. This is number 98. Slowly, we tick to 3 digits. Tick, tick, tick. Today is going to be no exception. We're going to have, I think, a great episode. And with me, as always, to stand in for you, the person who's going to ask those tough questions or frivolous questions, depending upon what she ends up asking me, but we are going to go over those in just a second. So the ever lovely Sandra. Sandra, how you doing?
I am well. How about yourself?
Doing well. See, Sandra's in a sedate, she's in a Zen state. She knows that this is going to be important. She's the counterbalance to this mad charade that we call Raging Verbalist. So, and by the way, if you want to find out more about it, go to the Position to Win book Facebook group. You can always ask questions and join the conversation. You can also go to positiontowinbook.com, get some freebies, you cheapies out there, but also you can buy the book. John, show the books. I always have to have a note for myself, show the book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Just take them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to win. So Sandra, what are we talking about today?
All right. So talking about field goals. So did you see the 66-yard field goal recently?
I did. And that was pretty exciting because if you watch that, in fact, I understand that some people have scientifically stated that this is the farthest one can kick a field goal. And of course, they were in a dome and they were in there and he kicked it as hard as he could. And it got, by the way, just so everybody just knows, just in case you don't know it, is that Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens kicked the game-winning field goal as time expired, 66 yards, doinks off of the crossbar and goes over, breaking Detroit Lion fans' hearts once again, and of course making that happen. But 66 yards, it was crazy. Now, by the way, that is not the longest, and there was only 3 seconds left. That is not the longest field goal attempt in NFL history. It was actually a 76-yard field goal, which was not made, obviously, by a guy named Sebastian Janikowski of the Oakland Raiders fame against the San Diego Chargers on September 28th, 2008. That was the longest attempt, and it didn't work. But yes, I did see that. I have you seen it? Did you go watch that video? I've watched it from lots of different angles. And did you go watch that?
I actually didn't see it, but I saw part of the beginning of the game and then something else happened and I heard about it.
You heard about it. Well, I mean, and when it hit that crossbar, that resounding going, kind of reverberates out. So yes. So you gave up on the game. I mean, it wasn't really much of a nail biter at 1917 as time expired and all that, but still quite interesting, quite amazing. And that's pretty great. I don't know if you know it or not, Sandra. This is one of those, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, the longest field goal successfully kicked at any level. This means not only professionals, it also means college. I know that for those of you who don't know, Sandra is a college fan. Tell everybody who your favorite team is, just so we don't have to wonder.
The Nebraska Cornhuskers, go Big Red.
Go Big Red. And Big
That's
Red
right.
is not a cinnamon chewing gum. It isn't a flavor of Mountain Dew. It is actually apparently a football team in this far off land. And they play in Lincoln, Nebraska, right?
Correct.
So
At
the
Memorial
land
Stadium.
but not the land of Lincoln, Nebraska, and away they go. All right. So just so everybody knows that a guy named Ovi Johansson of Abilene Christian University Wildcats in a 1976 game against the East Texas State University Lions, now, of course, Texas A&M University Commerce, kicked a 69-yard field goal in Shotwell Stadium in Abilene, Kansas. Not Kansas, Abilene, Texas. What am I saying? Oh, my goodness. There's probably somebody from Texas already loading the rifle into the rack, firing up the pickup and getting some chips or something. But yeah, so that, by the way, that is the longest. I did not know. I had to research for this. 69 yards. But of course, now Abilene Christian, I wonder if there was some divine intervention on that or not, and what that means to us. So yes, I saw it. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, and no, we don't play other other people's videos, but you might check it out on YouTube. So what is the next question, Sandra?
All right. So since you grew up in Denver, did you ever see a game with a super long field goal?
So living in Denver is always interesting because the Denver Broncos, even though they were for years the laughingstock of the AFL West and then the AFC West, we never really had a great team for a long time. In fact, quick little story is that but before I go there, they always sold out. That was the weird thing. They always sold out, even if they sucked. Whereas unlike, since I now, reside in California, and I used to go to San Diego to see games, oftentimes the games were not sold out. I mean, I guess surf was up or something, but it was always the same excuse. Well, they aren't winning enough. I don't know. Anyway, so growing up, I never really saw a game inside of the stadium because we couldn't get tickets. And my father didn't want to pay scalpers fees. I don't know why, but he didn't want to pay the scalpers fees. And so it wasn't until later on in life that I got to go. However, and here's the really interesting story. I think it's an interesting story, is that in 1998, which was the second year the Broncos went to the Super Bowl and won it. I mean, put my hand on my heart over that one. They actually played the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this was like kind of a grudge match because a couple of years before the Jaguars had knocked us out of the playoffs, which was our rightful place to go, but they just lucked out. Anyway, I ended up taking my father to this game, and we sat with my niece, Jennifer, and my father and I, and we sat in the south stands, which were the rowdy stands. And somewhere buried in my memorabilia are the tickets. And I think the ticket had a face value of like $20. And I ended up, because I really wanted to take him. He had some real serious health issues, didn't know how long he was going to last. So I said, the hell with it. I've got the money. I'm going to do it. And I paid $600 for each ticket. So $1,800. And we're sitting there in the south stands, which of course people are going crazy. It's nuts. By the way, this is all before StubHub or any of that stuff was ever even dreamed about. And along the way, a 63-yard field goal coming right at us. Jason Elam hit a 63-yarder, which, by the way, tied the record, which was set by Tom Dempsey in 1970. So it took 28 years for someone to just tie the record. And that was pretty amazing. Now, for those of you who don't know football that well, when Tom Dempsey kicked that field goal for against, and this was crazy part, is that he played for the New Orleans Saints, who were really the laughing stock. Talk about some coincidences. The Detroit Lions are who they were playing against. And Tom Dempsey goes out there, kicks a 63-yard field goal, off of the grass in Tulane Stadium. And the Lions lose 19-17. Now, if that doesn't send chills, if that doesn't tell you there's a conspiracy theory, if that doesn't tell you that somewhere there's a big giant whirlpool in the sky tossing all this stuff around, what does? But here's the thing, is that Tom Dempsey was born with a stub for a right foot. And he kicked the game-winning kick as time expired. Now, the crazy part about it is that they had actually had their kicker, the Detroit guys had kicked the field goal with 11 seconds to give the Lions the lead. And then this guy comes out and kicks a 63-yarder. Now, a little more trivia for everybody. one of the Detroit linemen was a guy named Alex Karras. And for those of you who don't know who he was, I don't know if Alex is still alive. If you're out there, Alex, hi. Anyway, all you have to do is watch Blazing Saddles, because he ended up getting a role that was really, one of those roles of a lifetime, because he played Mongo in Blazing Saddles. But the linemen didn't even try to block the kick, because they were like, how the hell's the guy going to make a 63-yard field goal and he doesn't even have a real foot? Well, turns out that was a pretty good club, and kicked that thing 63 yards. And he said, look, all we had to do was raise our hands. We would have knocked it out because of the trajectory of it. That's the word of the day. Just like Sesame Street has the word, trajectory is your word of the day. So that's that story. But I knew about that record. I knew all about that because I was just the right age when that kick happened, and everybody talked about it a lot when I was growing up. And now 28 years later, I saw that kick. Pretty amazing, very cool. By the way, my father did recover and got a few more years, but it was absolutely really cool to watch that game and watch that happen and see that. So yes, I saw that kick, and yes, it was great.
That's awesome. That's a cool story. So it seems like a lot of these really long field goals are kicked in Denver.
Well, it's interesting because John Madden of the Raiders fame, and of course Bronco fans, we hated the Raiders, but what the Denver team did, or what the stadium did, is that they put signs everywhere pointing out that you were 5,280 feet, which means you were a mile high. And they put it everywhere and said, you are a mile high. Now, for those of you who have never been to Denver, and I know there's a lot of people out in the world who's never been to Denver, but Denver being a mile high, air is thinner. It really is thinner. And because of that, it means that the ball can travel farther. And we used to watch kickers come in and do really well in kicking field goals, and they would kick these field goals, and it was kind of amazing. In fact, that's why when you go through the record book and you look at it, see, in 2013, Matt Prater, who had held the record since 2013 until just recently here in 21, had kicked a 64-yard field goal as the Denver kicker, and broke Jason Elam and Tom Dempsey's shared goal. But before that, in 2011, Sebastian Janikowski, remember the guy who tried a 76-yarder, didn't work? Well, he had kicked a 63-yarder in Denver. And as you go through the record books, you see a lot of people who kicked a lot of really long field goals. So I think it is proof positive that it is less air, ball goes further, people love it, except that you get winded. And it was always funny, not so funny today, but it was always funny growing up, because they would show the sidelines and they would show these very in shape athletes just huffing oxygen because, of course, they're a mile high. Now I can tell you it really is a difference. So now it's not like going to the top of a mountain, but it is higher. Now I know, Sandra, you've been to Denver several times. Now, have you ever experienced a little bit of that, what's called Rocky Mountain High from altitude? Have you seen some of that?
I think it was more when we were like hiking or out in the higher altitude. I think this last trip where I went a few weeks ago, because we were at like 12,000 feet, and I noticed it there, but not so much when you're in like Denver, Colorado Springs, but higher for sure.
Well, and I wasn't expecting you to say, well, when you were kicking field goals that you noticed a difference. So,
oh yeah,
yeah. Now, having said that, what I want you to do is think about, no matter what altitude you're at, that you should still always think about how you're going to learn how to improve your business, take your career to another level, and do some very interesting things. And I have that little boost. I have that altitude gain that you can have, which is go pick up the book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to Win. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, wherever fine books are sold. There's a physical book. See, I'm holding a physical book for you. You know, this is not an animation. This is actually a real physical book. We also have the ebooks available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Apple. And for those of you who want to learn how to get through all of the various crazy that's going on and deal with, in fact, working remote, is pick up Remote Work. Oh, wrong way. Remote Work for a Better World, available exclusively on Amazon. Now, having said that, go to Position to Win book.com and go check it out. There's a bunch of freebies for you people. There's a bunch of other stuff, but go check it out. All right, Sandra, back to kicking field goals.
All right. So are there any lessons to be learned from field goal kickers?
Well, I think the lesson is that if you actually talk, and I've talked to professional football players, if you talk to them, most of them are pretty, negative about the kickers. But as we see from this list, as we see, especially today, field goal kickers have become a much more important part of the game because of how many close games are decided by the kicker. And therefore, what we can learn about it is that whenever you're assembling a group, sometimes you need that specialist. Sometimes you need that person who can actually do just that very specific job. And even if they are the short, little, scrawny guy, maybe that's the person that can kick the field goal and do that. So always, I think that's one of the things we can learn from field goal kickers is that position players are important. It's one of the reasons why I like American football a lot is that when you look at how that is put together, there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of bodies, 11 on 11. Nah, I don't understand the Canadians with 12 on 12. Hey, I guess they're just trying to prove a point or something. But 11 on 11 is pretty cool. And I think what we can learn from field goal kickers is that every person can have a contribution to whatever project that you're working on, and make sure that you have the best that you possibly can.
Right. So is there an equivalent of those kinds of specialized players in a business setting?
Well, and I'm glad, I'm glad that we're getting to this part, because in business, oftentimes people will try to, not get always those specialized people. Example that I can really remember is that I had a client who wanted to go out there and kind of change the world, so to speak. And he was using just a singular type of an attorney. Always a good idea to understand that though anybody who is an attorney can practice law in a variety of different areas, but you should always look for specialists. So if you need somebody for taxes, get a tax specialist. If you need somebody who's going to help you with, contract law, get that kind of lawyer. If you need somebody for collecting debts, get somebody for that. So I think the equivalent are all of the specialists that are out there that you might need. Also, you want to look around at your team and say, how do I break down and find specific jobs that I can maybe get that best person to do it? And if you do that, I think you'll find that you'll become more successful. Mistake that people make with regularity is not understanding that you need specialists to get certain things done. Not everything, but you need specialists to get certain things done. And if you do, you absolutely do. And don't ever try to kid yourself and get a generalist when a specialist will do. I can tell you from having worked around a whole bunch of men's clinics, lots of doctors and all that, is that the last thing you want is to mistakenly not understand there's a difference between, a podiatrist and, other types of doctors. Yeah. If you got a foot problem, get a podiatrist. But if you have another issue, maybe you got to go out there and you have to get a specialist. So if you need a cardiologist, don't get a foot doctor. With all due respect to my friends who are podiatrists.
All right. So do you think that there's ever going to be a game where it's going to go even further?
So according to somebody who spent a lot of time on computer modeling and put together a YouTube video, which I've watched now twice, he claims that we are at the end of our physical limitation. Well, clearly we're not. I mean, we have kicked more longer field goals. And I think the reason for that is because people are in better shape than ever before. They have have better training, they have better methodologies, and they're figuring this out. See, when I was growing up, I went to a soccer camp, and it was really interesting because, of course, now this was, this is football to all of you outside of the U.S., but went to a soccer camp, and the interesting thing about it is that there was this guy, and he was older than I was. I mean, I was a little peewee guy, and but he was going to be a place kicker in the NFL potentially, right? Because this guy could just take a soccer ball and kick it from god awful length and put it through the crossbars. And he said, how hard can it be to go from a round ball to a football, which turned out to be a really big troubling problem. And he tried and he tried, and he was, he was going to be this amazing kicker. Well, a couple of things happened along the way, which is, number one, he found out that kicking a soccer ball off of nice, smooth grass without anybody racing up to you was one thing. And he was amazingly accurate and very good at it. On the other hand, putting on all the padding and then kicking a weird, odd shaped ball and trying to make that thing launch and take off while you have 300-pound aggressive men chasing after you, a whole different thing. So I believe that, and he did not make the tryouts did not go well, sadly. I mean, we were all a little bit bummed. We thought we were going to see some magic. I've seen a lot of people try, and rare is the occasion that somebody makes it work. I mean, hats off and a shout out to, Justin Tucker, because Justin Tucker did a fabulous job. I mean, I'm not happy because, by the way, he burned my team in my own stadium. He burned them, but I mean, this guy has got a phenomenal record, and congrats to him as a shout out for that. But back to your question, I think that they're going to keep trying. In fact, on that same Sunday, Matt Prater, who had held the record at 64 yards for a long time, tried a 68 yarder, did not quite have the leg to do it. But I think that we will see the trying and eventually, one will sneak across. I mean, Justin barely got it over, and I think we'll see another one get it over there. And because of that, why not? Why not hope that we see records fall? That's the fun part of life, is watching things progress and moving forward. It would never be any fun if things were never to be broken or never to be accomplished again. And because of that, that means for all of you who are out there, whatever business, whatever vocation, whatever job, whatever thing that you're doing, always give 100% of what you have. Always see if you can go just a little bit further. Who knows, maybe inside of you is that your equivalent of being able to hit that longest field goal. But remember, the true measure is not how well you do against everyone else. It's how you do against yourself. Can you get the best of you out on the field, the best person that you are, to go out there and make things happen? If you do that, then what you are, in my book, is what I believe is a winner. And because of that, I hope that each and every one of you goes out there and tries for whatever that field goal in life that you may have, to see if you can be that game-winning, at the buzzer, at the final gun winner that you want to become. And with that, I want to thank everybody who is out there in Raging Verbalist land. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Sweet Selling, and for the ever lovely Sandra. We'll be here next week as we count down to 100 for the Raging Verbalist.